California Media.
Coming up on NCM TV, it's been 25 years since the fall of Saigon, and the country is still coming to terms with the Vietnam War, although now memories are shared by Vietnamese Americans. Next on NCM TV, New California Media.
Hello and welcome. I'm Emil Guillermo, columnist and the host and moderator of NCM TV, New California Media, the New America Now. It's the news and views of the nation's emerging new majority. We'll discuss today's topic and meet our panel in just a moment. But first, it was the final exit of what was supposed to be peace with honor, President Nixon's phrase. But the reality was anything but. It was the fall of Saigon. On April 29, 1975, U.S. helicopters began the retreat. A massive airlift carried over 1,000 American civilians and 7,000 South Vietnamese. The next day, 2 Marines were killed, the war's last victims, and the final tally was in. Over 58,000 Americans killed, 1,000 missing in action, 150,000 wounded. For the Vietnamese, even larger numbers, 1 million North Vietnamese, 25,000 South Vietnamese, all military personnel. As for civilians, the best estimates are in the hundreds of thousands. Staggering numbers, but now another one keeps mounting. The years since war's end, and now it is at 25, each year stimulating our memories.
North versus South. Communist versus free world. Americans torn amongst themselves. When the conflict of war is too painful, the first draft too real, Americans have often turned to artistic visions to make sense of war. Films reconstruct from memory and evoke new feelings commingled with the old. Coppola's Apocalypse Now is considered the most notable attempt. Oliver Stone's Platoon, another. For most people, the memories remain inside, mostly private, especially for the thousands of South Vietnamese who have resettled in California. Many of them are still passionate opponents of the communist regime that has ruled the country for 2.5 decades. Display a picture of Ho Chi Minh, honor the North, and the community shows it's still engaged.
My family, the member, be killed by communists, killed by Ho Chi Minh policy. And also, generally, 80 million Vietnamese people is a victim of communists back home. And we are here to raise the voice, speak up for them, to tell the Americans and the world know the communist is terrible, he's a killer.
Many of those who fled during the fall of Saigon have found new lives in the New California, and now there's a sizable community of several 100,000 here. How are they dealing with the Vietnam War 25 years later? What's the community's response to the somber nostalgia? Let's meet today's panel. Con Lee is a high-tech entrepreneur who participated in the fall of Saigon. Welcome, Con Lee. Nguyen Cam Nguyen is a graduate student at UC Berkeley. She came to the U.S. 4 years ago. Welcome, Cam. Andrew Lam is a writer with Pacific News Service. He lives in the Bay Area and recently returned from Vietnam. And General T. Quang Lam, Andrew's father, a former general with the South Vietnamese Army, now lives in Silicon Valley. Welcome, General Lam. And welcome to all of you. Let's begin with you, Andrew. You just returned from Vietnam. How do they commemorate the fall of Saigon? I guess it's not a celebration, or what?
Well, actually, they celebrate. In fact, the officials' version of the day is that it's a National Liberation Day, and so in Saigon they're going to have a parade this day, April 30th, and they will have thousands and thousands of people out waving flags. But it's a very interesting note because in the North they don't celebrate. Nobody seems to celebrate anything except for in Saigon. It's become a symbolic gesture only in that city.
All right, now you've just returned from Vietnam. When you went back there, what kind of memories did that trigger off from? You left just days before the fall of Saigon, so you got an early start. What kind of memories do you have?
Well, I mean, basically, what I have memory of Vietnam is very much in conflict with what the Vietnam looks like now. When I left Vietnam, it was about 35 million people. Now there's 80 million people, and and you're talking about half of the population under the age of 25 with no memory of the war. So if I go back to Vietnam looking for signs of the war, I would be sorely disappointed, because it's a country that seemed to have moved on beyond the war's aftermath and its remnants.
They've moved on, but Americans, in some ways, in that we're commemorating the anniversary, I guess Americans haven't.
Yeah, in some ways it's ironic, because the Vietnamese, at least especially with the young, romanticizing America. They've taken down Ho Chi Minh pictures and put up the Backstreet Boys and, you know, Baywatch starlets. And so, whereas you see American coming back to Vietnam searching for signs of the past, you know, the Cu Chi Tunnel, which has been redug so that the American can fit in, or, you know, they have to pay $1 a bullet so they can shoot an AK-47 at some sign. It's sort of an sort of reverse thing, where Vietnam longs to sort of belong to a cosmopolitan reality of the globalization, and you have Americans going back to Vietnam looking for traces of the past.
And when you go back, and you were a young boy when you left, days before the fall of Saigon, what memories of that particular day come back, or are still there?
Well, I mean, I will always remember the date, because it was 28th of April, and we were told to get on a C-130 plane, you know, to flee out of Vietnam. And it was one of the last 2 cargo planes that left Tan Son Nhut Airport before it was shelled with missiles. And I remember leaving the house, and the house was basically left with everything intact, you know, the dogs. And I think my mom also lit incense, you know, to pray to the ancestors for the one last time. And so in some way, the house seems to be still buzzing with life as we leave it. It's sort of a refugee experience where you don't have a preparation, and so forever that image stays static in my mind as the incense still, you know, waver and the family leave.
And how about the idea, I know when people leave here, and when for something as mundane as a vacation, there's always this thing, well, did I leave something, what do I bring? Was there a thought about what would you bring with you to what did you have with you?
Well, basically we all had a little you know, backpack and ran with it, but everything else was left behind. And in fact, because of my father's position in the South Vietnamese Army, my mom had actually had all the photo burned. And so basically, that's something that I always regret about not bringing along, was the image of the past, because that's sort of been deprived from us.
Well, you mentioned your father and General Lam. As you hear Andrew talk about this, what kind of memories are triggered off about the day? Because your position as a general, you left several days after your family.
Yeah, I left when General Nguyen and Canh, the president of the republic at that time, he ordered the surrender of the Vietnamese army. So at that time, I thought that I could not stay, because the North Vietnamese already almost took over the city. So I left the Saigon on April 30th.
You were considering staying? You were considering staying beyond?
Yeah, if General Nguyen did not surrender, we still have the 4th Corps in the Mekong Delta still fighting. But General Nguyen, he negotiated with Hanoi, and he ordered the surrender of all army units in the capital and also in the 4th Corps in the Mekong Delta.
That must have been a heavy decision. Did you ever regret saying to yourself, maybe I should have stayed a little longer, or maybe I should have left with my family?
You have to understand what the political maneuvering at the time. When North Vietnamese army was fighting the north around Saigon, the French ambassador Jean-Marie Young, he tried to form a coalition government between the Viet Cong, the third party opposition party, and the incumbent nationalist party. And General Nguyen and Viet Cong General Trang Văn Tra will be co-president of this coalition government.
So there